So I talked about transitions, right? I mentioned a bit of every little thing, and then I kind of just looked more so at, I focused more so on marriage and what that shows up as. So I really want to talk a little bit about that whole mother wound, right? And just how our childhood can really affect who we are as adults. And I remember years ago, my twin sister posted on social media, she was talking about child experience of molestation that she had, right? That she'd experienced. And I remember this girl, we must have gone to high school with her, who was just like, oh, like, get over it. I mean, like, shoot, it's happened to other people. And, shoot, it's not bothering me. Man, let me just tell you this, right? You don't know how stuff is going to show up in your life 20 years and 30 years later. I know people who went through rapes and different things, sexual assaults, right? And I may be censored for the R word, and it didn't bother them, or they didn't think it bothered them. But you know what? In their older age, guess what's happening to them? Flashbacks and insomnia. Okay? I feel like I need to talk about how our unhealed stuff shows up in our parenting. My daughter and I have been having this conversation for the past year or so, but it's gotten more intense lately. Where she's really been saying to me, Mommy, you damaged me. I've been affected. I was affected by the way that you parented me. And for those of you who don't know, I got pregnant when my daughter when I was in high school, 18 years old. And my brothers always be like, "Oh, well, you got pregnant in high school. Well, look at me now. Look at me now." But that's a whole nother story, right? That's a whole nother story. That's what you call family trauma and family drama. But that's not what I want to focus on. My stuff, right? I remember being like this mother in my 20s, this young mother, and I was so focused on my daughter not being like me because I felt like such a failure. I felt like my mother had failed with me. I just felt like I was just a nothing. My accomplishment, my focus was my daughter. Like, I needed her to be the best thing in life because that was my thing. And what that looked like was me putting a lot of pressure on her to perform, to do good in school, to be this good behaving kid. And she was never a bad behaving child. For those of you who know my daughter is thebomb.com. Good kid. But what would happen and what's happening now is that she now unpacks her trauma. She now unpacks it. What she's being faced with is, my mom loved me, but I felt like my mom abused me. And that's her truth, right? That's her truth. Now, I may feel like it differs for me. I may feel like, no, I didn't abuse you. I loved you. And I punished you when I felt like it was the right thing to do. I corrected you. I disciplined you, whatever. But my way of discipline affected her. And so, how many times does your kid or you yourself have gone to your parents or wanted to say, hey, I know that you thought you were doing the best thing for me, but how you did this affected me. And the response, right? So when I first started talking to my mom about how how she corrected me, how she dealt with me as a kid, how that affected me, my mom was very resistant because she felt attacked. And it could have been the way that I was saying, because I didn't have the, conversational skills or the communication skills that I have now. And so my mom would feel like attacked. But later on, my mom started getting it and she started apologizing for it. And so my daughter would come. I sometimes would be like, girl, what? In my head, I'm like, this did not happen to you. Sometimes I would feel that way, but I realized that a part of my daughter's healing from what her experience has been is me being able to say, baby, I'm so sorry, you did not deserve that. I was giving you what I had. And when we say that, we're not looking at the fact that we're giving the good and the bad. I thought I was giving my daughter structure. I was giving her discipline. I was making her into the person that I never was. But I was also giving her my unresolved trauma, which was part of it was my unresolved anger. I did not know I was angry. So when my daughter would do things, right? When she would like kind of do things that kids do, what that I would do would be like I would overcorrect. And overcorrect would look like beating her for stuff that she didn't need a beating for, or beating her way more than she needed that beating. And I'm just being open and I'm being honest with you. Why? Because some of you need to heal from that type of stuff. Some of you need to heal from from having parents like I was to my daughter. Some of you need to heal and allow your kids to heal from you being the parents that you have been to them. As a parent, you want to do your best. You want to give your best. But what happens is that your unresolved stuff shows up and it looked normal to you because that's how you were raised. I was telling my daughter, girl, that was normal to me. That's how I was raised. I was raised on beatings. I was raised on you getting scars from your beatings. I was raised like that. And so that's how I raised her, not realizing how that would traumatize her. And yes, it's made me question, man, am I a good mom? Was I a good mom? And she's like, yes, mom, you were a good mom. But how does that work together, right? Me being a good mother, but me also hurting my daughter. And we can say it was for their best. It was for their best. But when you have damaged your kids, is it really for their best? So here's my encouragement to you, right? It's never too late to say, I'm sorry. When your children start coming to you and saying, you know what, mom, how you did this, or you know what, dad, how you did this really affected me, you got to put your ego aside. You got to put your ego aside because they now need to heal from stuff that you didn't know damaged them. They now have to heal, and you're a part of that healing. You're a part of being able to say, listen, man, I hear you. Because sometimes that's all your children need to hear is that I hear you. I hear you. I am so sorry. That was not my intention. My intention was not to damage you. My intention was not to hurt you. I just wanted you to be the best you could have been. And so I did the best I could have done with what was given to me. But obviously it wasn't enough. Obviously it was too much. What do we do? Because we're walking around with fractured relationships with our parents. You know, hating our daddies, hating our mommies. Our kids are separated from us because we don't know how to talk to them. We don't know how to respect them as human beings. You can change your life and you can change your relationships, but you have to start with being able to just sit with yourself and be with yourself and be able to be like, yo, I could have done differently. I could have done it differently. When your kids come to you and they're talking to you, they're not trying to attack you. They may not always know how to say it tactfully because they're still learning communication skills. In my 20s, the Trisha that you know now in her 40s is not the Trisha that I was in my 20s. I'm talking about when I talked, I sounded like I was always ready, probably ready to fight. And it's look at that. You see that? You see that leading into the camera? You know? But that was me and I didn't even know it. I didn't even know it. So when I talked to my parents, it may have been that they felt attacked because I sounded angry, right? But because people sound angry doesn't mean they're angry. You owe it to your kids to be able to say, I'm sorry. You owe it to your kids to say, I'm sorry. And you also owe it to yourself to talk to your parents and say, Mommy, Daddy, you know what? I'm walking around with this stuff. And a part of what I'm walking around is how you dealt with me. I wish you could have, it would have been different. My parents, my parents still, you know what I'm saying? Like, and of course I'm now like trying to guard what I'm saying because I don't want to put people out there. But I say it like this. Normalized. Abuse was normalized in our culture. It was normalized. As a Jamaican, abuse was normalized. Some of you West Indians probably can relate to that. Some of you Black Americans can probably relate to that. Abuse was normalized in our culture. We were taught that to be beat down, to be, you know what I'm saying, money being withheld from us from our parents when we didn't do what we needed to do, things being withheld was normal. And you know what that did? What that did was teach us how to be in relationships that were and are abusive. That's what that taught us. And it taught us to also abuse our dang on kids, whether emotionally, financially, mentally, physically. So I'm going to pause this here, right? But I want you to know that change is okay. Change is okay. Because your kids come to you and say, yo, you did this, you did that, does not mean that you were a bad parent. It just means that you affected them, that you hurt them. And it's okay to say, I'm sorry for hurting you. And you can go to your parents and do the same. Mom, Dad, how you dealt with me was hurtful to me. All right? Again, my name is Trisha. I am a licensed master social worker. I work as a therapist. I am available. If you're interested in private practice, interested in seeing me as a therapist, I'm available. All right?